Hey, it's Greg Stanley. Welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. I've got a big chock full episode here full of collector car market trends and valuations. What I'm going to do is I'm not only going to share my 2023 bull market list with you, but I'm going to review how my 2022 list did, at least a couple of the high points, as well as my 2021 list. Now, if you like these kind of lists, you will hear from another expert at the end of this episode, so stay tuned. There's a lot of good, fun information coming up. Now, before we begin, as always, if you need any help with your collector car, trying to figure out what's the best way to possibly sell it, feel free to give me a call or email. You can go to my website, thecollectorcarpodcast.com, and there's a contact page there where you can reach me directly. So I love hearing from all of you. All right, the next bit of news is that my podcast has now moved to Fridays from Thursdays. So I won't go into why on the podcast, but if you would like to know, whenever I see you in person, ask me and I will tell you. So now it's being released 4 a.m. Friday morning, so that if you're a gym rat at the gym at 5 a.m., you'll be able to check it out. YouTube usually posts later, at least the YouTube episode, so I am trying to do that weekly as well. Now, as far as some upcoming auctions, nothing major. I know we have the Scottsdale auction that either just occurred or is occurring as you listen to this podcast. And then we have Amelia Island coming up in March. The consignment deadline for that has passed, so no more cars for the Armed Sotheby's Amelia Island sale at least. But there'll be some really cool stuff coming up later in the year, so stay tuned for that. Now, as far as upcoming events, I do have another Guest to Hammer live streaming game show event coming up on April the 1st, probably midday, if I had to guess, 2 until 4 o'clock, something like that. So you can check that out on my YouTube channel, thecollectorcarpodcast.com. If you're watching right now online, I am showing a few pictures from that event. It was at Moto Car Club in Blue Ash, Ohio. Great place, great turnout. We had probably about 65 people that showed up in person. Had a lot of technical difficulties for the first one, but did get it sorted out by the time that we went live. A little late, instead of 4 o'clock, it was probably about 4:10. And a lot of you pinged me. You made some guesses on the live stream. I love that. We'll have that performing a lot better next time. So it will be fun. There are some fun prizes. I'm actually drinking out of one of the prizes, a Collector Car Podcast travel mug here. So a lot of fun. A lot of folks seem to enjoy it online as well as in person. If you would like to host one of these in the future, just shoot me a note and we'll see what we can do from that perspective. All right, so now I do want to cover my bull list. Now, one thing that's interesting, Ford actually made a really big announcement. Actually, I don't know that it was that big of an announcement, but it's really cool. They opened up the Ford Heritage Vault. I bring that up because one of the first cars I'm going to cover from 2021's bull market list is the 1989 Ford Bronco Eddie Bauer. Now, I like to always bring you pictures if you're watching online. Typically, I source from Armed Sotheby's in their database from past auction sales, but I couldn't find a 1989 Ford Bronco, at least one where I thought the pictures were cool enough to show. So for this podcast, if it's not from Armed Sotheby's, it's going to be from Ford's Heritage Vault, or it's going to be from the website cargurus.com. So if you're on YouTube, you'll obviously see the difference between these. Some of these cars that are on my bull market list are so new, it's rare that they've actually come to a public auction. All right, so speaking about Ford Heritage Vault, this is where you can actually go onto their website and they've released all of their previous images to the public. So this would be like some of their, let's see if I can find it here, some of their old brochures. Looks like what I was trying to find timed out. So for this example, for 2021, the bull market list, I wanted to show you, let's see, the Ford Bronco Eddie Bauer. So all you do is you just search for it and it pulls up all of the brochures for that time frame, and you just pick the one you're interested in. And it's just a super cool wealth of information, and it's really smart in my mind for Ford to do this. So they have their brochures online as PDFs that you can scroll through. I mean, it's only going to help the Ford brand by sharing this information. Apparently, it's so popular that it actually shut their servers down initially when it was released online. So speaking of the 1989 Ford Bronco Eddie Bauer, I'm going to give you the last 12 months and 36 months market trend, how it performed. So in the last 1 year, it's gone up 7.7%. Last 3 years, it's gone up 51.8%. So this is a bull market item for 2021. It continues to do tremendously well. It kind of shows how the generational shift is occurring. We saw the first gen Broncos go through the roof, so it only makes sense that the ones after that would, as well as that demographic base ages. So that was the first one I wanted to highlight. Let's see, the next one I wanted to talk about is a really cool International Scout. So it's a 1978 International Scout 2, the Super Scout. And the picture I have online right now is one that was sold at RM Sotheby's, and it's the crazy cool. This is the one you want. It's the orange with brown and tan decals. It has the removable side door that's made out of, I think it's out of vinyl. A super cool convertible SUV. Latest 1 year up 4%. Latest 3 years up 75.2%. So you can see that the momentum on these has slowed drastically. I do believe we have already peaked in the collector car marketplace probably about 3 months ago. So I think you'll see valuations start declining. They definitely have flatlined in a lot of cases, which really made picking out my list for 2023 difficult. When the entire market has gone up for a number of years and you want to pick cars that will continue as the entire market goes down, it's kind of hard. So I've got some interesting picks in here. The next kind of group of cars I wanted to talk about from 2021's bull market list were the 3 hypercars that were released in 2015. So this would be the McLaren P1, it would be the Porsche 918 Spider, and the Ferrari LaFerrari. Now, the Ferrari LaFerrari by far and large has been the big winner from a valuation standpoint. The average value in number one conditions, $4.2 million. While for the other 2 cars, the average price is around $1.7, $1.8 million. In the latest 12 months, the P1 is up 6%. The 918 and the LaFerrari are both up 13.3%. So they also have slowed down, but the LaFerrari and the Spider not as much as the P1, which is the picture of the car I am showing right now. All right, let's move on to 2022. Those were just some of the highlights I wanted to pull out of 2021. For 2022, I have a couple, and the one I wanted to start on here is another Ford Bronco, but this one is an earlier one, so this would be the 1979 Ford Bronco. So different generation than the 89. Let's see here. So here's a picture here. Actually, that's a bad picture. So this is one of the ones that has actually declined in the last year. It's actually gone down 6%. Let's see here. The last 3 years is still up 43%. So this is an example where it's appreciated greatly over the last 3 years, and the latest year is actually down because it did peak. Now, part of that could be a lot of different reasons. It just went up too fast, so now it's auto-correcting itself. I think one of the issues you have on these Broncos, even the later Broncos, and a lot of these cars from the 1980s and 1990s, is the aftermarket supply, parts supply. So until those come to fruition, that whole industry, you'll see only the best of the best selling for strong money, while the other ones don't, because there's no way to restore them. So a good, cool Ford Bronco I'm showing here. All right, the next one's a 1985 Mercedes 300 TD wagon. Now, the one I'll show here is not the wagon. Actually, I don't know that I have a picture here. I do not. All right, so for this wagon, it's been flat the latest 12 months. The latest 3 years up 69%. So again, you can see an example where it's peaked. The 1986 Mazda RX-7 Turbo, latest 1 year up 1.9%, not much. Latest 3 years up 41.6%. These are beautiful cars, underappreciated until recently, and now they've peaked, and they're going to start going down here shortly. So very cool little cars. The 1976 Porsche 912E, that's one that has also peaked. It's only up 1.6% latest 12 months, while its latest 3 years up 25.5%. And the last one I wanted to mention, which is really an interesting car, is the 2006 Ford GT Heritage Edition. Now, the average value in number one condition is $710,000. These really went through the roof, a lot higher than the traditional Ford GTs, the base Ford GTs that are not the Heritage Edition. And it was such a large gap between the Heritage Edition up around the $700,000-$800,000 range, and some examples for extremely low mileage examples, that it actually brought up the base Ford GTs up into the $500,000, $550,000 range, which just makes sense. So these are still up. The latest 1 year up 9.2%, latest 3 years up 57.8%. So this is, one of those blue chip cars that I don't think will ever go down much. It's like if you're going to have a Ford GT, this is the one that you're probably going to want to have. All right, and the last car, I don't think I have a picture here, is a 1973 Ferrari 246 GTS, so the little Dino GTS, still up 1 year, up 58.9%, 3 year up 100.2%. Now that one's interesting because that is a Ferrari Dino. Technically, it doesn't say Ferrari, actually doesn't say Ferrari anywhere on it. It's a 6-cylinder car, engine in the back. And I think that incredible growth on the Dinos, where they're trading at the price above the price for some of the big Ferrari Daytonas, played into why I picked a Ferrari Daytona for my 2023 bull market list. All right, so let's go into the cars I have for 2023. Now there's 15 cars I've picked, and then like I said, another expert will pipe in with, I don't know, another 8 or so cars afterwards. And the first one I've picked for my 2023 bull market list is a 2012 Audi R8 4.2 liter. So it's not necessarily the year, but I've picked the 8-cylinder version, not the V10. Currently, they're flat for the latest 12 months, up 18.6 latest 3 years. I picked this one because I do believe these are a huge future collectible, even though they flatlined right now. I'm hearing a lot of rumblings around about these cars in the collector world. So I think they, yes, they've gone up the latest 3 years, but I think they're about to take off. I didn't pick the V10 because there are some known issues with that V10 power plant. I'm not quite sure how much that's going to keep it from performing from a valuation standpoint. I think a lot of folks will go for the biggest, baddest, best of the Audi R8s, and that would be the V10. But if I were to buy one myself, I would go after the V8. So that's my first pick for my 2023 bull list. My next one is a really interesting car. It is the Cadillac CTS-V, 2000, approximately 10 through 2015 or so. But I picked the coupe. So this is the 2-door coupe. Latest 1 year up 1.8, latest 3 year up 11.1. I think these are just starting. If you look at the wagon version, especially the stick shift wagon version, they're double this average valuation. They're a $100,000 car. They didn't make that many of them, the biggest reason. But this coupe is just absolutely stunning, gorgeous. You've got 500 and whatever, 62 horsepower, 556, whatever it is, in a front engine V8. I actually took my wife and test drove one of these because this was one of those cars that's kind of on her bucket list. It was an automatic, but it was the perfect comp. It was like off-white with chrome wheels, cream interior, stunning car. The problem is, we drove it, we liked it, it was fun. It would have to be our everyday car, and that is not a car you want to drive through Cincinnati snow. So we passed on it. And the other thing is I don't know that it was worth, the experience was necessarily worth, 30, 40 grand than the car we're currently driving. Super cool. I would love to have one if I was independently wealthy, but I am not. So we had to pass on that car. I think that's a strong performer. Even the 4-door version, I think, will be a strong performer in the future. All right, the next one I have is interesting. It is a 1979 Volkswagen Transporter van Campmobile. The example I'm showing is not the Campmobile. Up 1 year, 3.2%. Up 3 years, up 109.7%. This is a tougher one for me to justify for 2023, but I'm going to see how it does. I just think that whole camping lifestyle is going to continue, and I think a lot of those folks are not car folks, and they'll still go after the Volkswagen vans because they're so iconic. All right, the next one is the Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG cars. For this example, I looked at the 2011. A couple things. I know previous guest on the podcast, Johnny Lieberman, he said the Black Series was the one to have, that the base, quote-unquote, base SLS AMG was just not that great of a car, but it has those iconic gull-wing doors. And I'm not crazy about what it looks like from the front, but it's got an AMG V8 engine. It's got the gull-wing doors, which is the biggest selling point in my mind. Latest 1 year up 5.2%. Latest 3 years up 6.4%. I was surprised to hear this. Average value in number one condition around $300,000. This is a car that, again, I would love to have. One key point about this, and they can revoke it at any time. Apparently, the Tour that is only for gull-wing cars, the classic gull-wings from the 50s and early 60s. They opened up that Tour to this version, which I think adds a lot of value to this car. I might be crazy, but the fact that you can pal around with the original gull-wing, I think that's pretty cool, and that's pretty iconic, and I don't think that anyone will be making doors like this anytime soon. Obviously, DeLorean's trying to relaunch their car, but it's such a boring car, even though it has gull-wing doors. I don't think it's going to happen. So, obviously, I know we have the Tesla, but those are kind of Falcon wings. So that's another one of my picks. All right, next, and I don't have a great picture of this car either, is the 2001 Acura NSX, Integra NSX. I have a picture of a non-Type R. The Type R is the one I would pick. Latest 1 year up 12.2%. Latest 3 years up 18.8%. That's just a generational trend. The JDM cars, the Asian cars, just being so popular. I think that will only continue to go up. All right, next, believe it or not, is another Sport Ute pickup truck. So this is the 1989 Ford F-150 half-ton pickup truck, preferably the short wheelbase. Folks that like pickup trucks, they just don't like the long wheelbase ones, or long bed. All right, so latest 1 year is up 14.7%. Latest 3 years up 38%. I just don't think pickup trucks are really going to go down. Chevrolets, whatever you want to call it, any of the brands. I think Ford F-150 being, in most people's eyes, the most iconic of all of them. I think that one will exceed the market valuation trends of the other ones, or do better. All right, next is another RX-7, but this is the first generation. This is the 1979 Mazda RX-7. And let's see, latest 1 year up 15.1%, latest 3 years up 70.9%. I love this car. I had a buddy in high school, his dad had one, so I was familiar with the car in the late 1980s, early 1990s. Just a neat little car, rear wheel drive, 5-speed, rotary powered. Neat little car, really small little car, can really zip around there. So I think those will continue to go up. All right, the next one. It's not my favorite generation of Corvettes, but I'm picking the 2004, not only the Corvette Z06, but specifically the commemorative edition. I think the Corvette Z06 would be a good pick as well. Latest 1 year up 15.5%. Latest 3 years up 48.8%. Again, this is the one I'm showing online right now is from Car Gurus. It's a spectacular example. It looks like they just washed it. Looks very, very nice. I think these Z06 will continue to appreciate across the board. I know they have, I think they call it a fixed head coupe on one of these years, where it's the only year that it kind of had this kind of odd, coupe style. They're rarer. I don't think that they necessarily look better, but because less were made, they do trend a little bit more than your standard Z06. All right, next, this is again showing, this is number 9 of 15 cars. Showing the generational shift here, again from Car Gurus. This is a 2002 Subaru Impreza WRX, not the STI. This would be your basic, I'm showing a wagon right here. This is a 2003 for sale for $24,000. Just neat. It's kind of following on the heels of the STI. It's just a good car. I don't remember the specifics, but I do know that for one of the years they had an engine swap. Where the later engine was a much better engine than the earlier one. So if you're looking at one of these, do your homework. Let's see, 1 year up 16%, latest 3 years up 48.8%. All right, number 10, the 1999 Nissan Skyline GTR, and I could go even deeper with the V-Spec. Now, reason being for this, it's a beautiful car, but more importantly, they are legal to import into the U.S. This would be the R34. If you've heard my previous interview with Sean Morris about Skylines, he said the R32 is by far his favorite. He liked the R34, but he said it wasn't as pure and raw as the original R32. So 1999 is the first year that these are available to import from Japan. Now, it's actually based on the build date. So currently, not all 1999 cars are available. You have to kind of go by when it was actually built. So if it wasn't built till August 25 years ago, you can't buy it till August of this year. Now, these have gone crazy. And I honestly, when I saw the valuations, I almost pulled this from the list because they've gone so nuts so recently. Up 16.6% latest 1 year, up 85.9% latest 3 years. Number one condition. Now, this is for the V-Spec, which is super rare, $500,000. Non-V-Spec, I would assume it's somewhere around the $150,000 range, but super cool. So one can make the argument as they come into the U.S., more illegal to come into the U.S., it will drive the price down. I don't disagree with that, but I don't think that will happen for another year, year and a half or so. All right, next. Now, I alluded to this earlier, based with the Dino prices going through the roof. I'm picking the Daytona, the Ferrari Daytona, the 365 GTB4. I'm picking this because for a long time, they got really soft. They're trading around $550,000, $600,000, and then you see a six-cylinder Dino sell for $800,000, $900,000, when you could have a front-engine V12 Ferrari for less money. I don't think that's going to stay. I think it's going to balance itself out. And I've already seen that recently. There was a green one that sold for, I want to say it was, I don't know, $690,000. There was a yellow one that just sold for just over $700,000. So they have come back in this last year, up 18.7%. Latest 3 years, up 41%. They had just taken a dive for a little while. So they're still coming up, and I think these will continue to come up. Now, apparently they drive like trucks until you get them up to speed. No power steering. Jay Leno just had a nice video with David Lee on his convertible Spider version. Now, I did not watch the whole video to find out if it was one of the real Spiders, which only made, I don't know, 121 of them or something. But it's a cool video, so be sure to check that out. All right, the next one is a Tesla. So this is the first generation Roadster. Now, online on YouTube, I've pulled up numerous of these cars from the Arm Sotheby's results. The one that really surprised me on this was at Elkhart Lake auction. That was 2020, just coming out of COVID. The auction went nuts. It was like one guy's collection, $44 million worth of cars. But the 2011 Tesla Roadster, so first generation Tesla Roadster, the estimate was $60,000 to $80,000. It sold for $140,000. Now, that seemed like that was an outlier. Well, there was another one last year or 2 years ago at the Arizona Scottsdale auction. Estimate was $90,000 to $100,000. So the estimates caught up with, closer to what that last one sold for. It is sold for $112,000. And then another one sold this last year at Monterey for $112,000. So, it's one thing to have one over $100,000, but now we have three over $100,000. And people ask me, well, why is that? And there's a lot of different reasons. It's industry disrupting technology, number one. Number two, it's a generational shift. Number three, it's Tesla, which if you're a Tesla owner, you're diehard. And so people want to go back to the original Tesla when they can, and especially this little Roadster. So let's see, latest 1 year up 21.5%, latest 3 years up 34.4%. I think that will continue unabated for quite a long time. All right, number 13 on our list of 15 cars from my bull market list is a 2011 Porsche 911 Carrera S. So now this is when there was a change to Porsche, and it was like an evolution, revolution, not an evolution, revolution of the entire Porsche car. I mean, it was everything from every aspect of Porsche was changed for the better. And 2011 was the first year that you could see all of these changes. So online, I picked up the GT2 RS, showing some pictures of that one. Honestly, it's the base car. Maybe the Carrera S I would look at. I think the turbos maintain their values, and they have not depreciated, and they've already gone up. So I think if you're looking for a nice Porsche that will appreciate in the future, look at the 2011 Carrera S or base Carrera cars. For the S, it's up 27.1% latest 1 year. For 3 years, up 61.8%. All right, 2 more to go. The next one's a 1989 Alfa Romeo Spider Graduate. Now, I just picked this because I think Alfas will continue to be popular. I think that generation will continue. People that are pursuing these cars will continue to do so. Let's see. Latest 1 year up 41.4%. Latest 3 years up 66.4%. Again, it goes with the generational shift. Folks buying cars from the 80s and 90s. Really cool, neat little car. All right, so our last one from my list before I get to the next list. Again, another pickup truck. So this is a 1990 Chevrolet 454 SS pickup truck. I picked this again for the reasons I mentioned earlier. The picture I'm showing has the window sticker on it. Latest 1 year up 47.7%. Latest 3 years up 122.1%. Pretty iconic in the Chevrolet world. Pretty cool, menacing looking. I remember when these came out new. I don't think these will go down. And this one has 2 things going for it. Everyone is super excited about pickups. And then again, the generational shift. So if you can find one of these that's in great shape, low mileage, no modifications, definitely pick it up. All right, so I don't have any more pictures if you're watching online, but I do want to cover just a handful of cars. Now this came from Haggerty's bull market list, and I'll just call these out. Let's see here. They had a 1995 to 1993 Saab 900 Turbo. I would agree with that one. Some of their highs were timeless looks, capable four-wheel drive layout. Lows were dwindling parts supply. I mentioned that earlier. Dwindling talent to service them. An orphan from a dead company. That's a good point. Sometimes cars aren't worth as much because they don't make some type of version today. You know, so think about Pontiacs. They're not Pontiacs from the 50s are not going to appreciate as fast as say a Chevrolet from the 50s. All right, let's see. Next is a 1991 to 1998 Suzuki Cappuccino. Cute little JDM car. I don't know that I agree with that one offhand. 1968 to 1970 AMC AMX. I don't know. That's, you know, kind of this, you know, the lone 2-seat American muscle car. Interesting. I don't know about that one. All right, next is the 2004 to 2010 Mercedes-Benz SLR McLaren. I would agree with that one. That's a supercar that's been depressed for years. Just hasn't maintained the same valuation trends as some of its contemporary supercars. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. All right, 3 more for their list. A 1985 Toyota pickup 4x4 SR5. I totally agree with that one. I would also throw in the 4Runners from the 80s and 90s. Those will continue to do tremendously well. You can buy a brand new 4Runner today. Next, they have the Lamborghini Murcielago LP640 from 2010. And the last one they had on the list was a 2003 to 2008 Nissan 350Z. I would agree with that one as well. Those have probably bottomed out from a depreciation standpoint, and they have nowhere left to go but up. All right. That's it for this week. As a reminder, I will have this podcast out every Friday. I should have a new YouTube video every Monday. I'm trying to tour some cool collections, some cool events, some cool dealerships, some cool museums. So please check that out. Share it with your friends. As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking. Thanks for sharing. I will talk to all of you next week.